Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl. You're listening to us on our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, all of our TV channels on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, as well as on the web, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link, or tune in on Facebook, Civic Center TV 15 and Lakes FM. In addition, today, we're on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff. And as always, joining me from her home studio in Keego Harbor is Ronnie Dahl.
So Tyler, Trixie the Wonder Dog has been quiet until right now. My husband went golfing this morning, so it's kind of thrown off her schedule. And she's just like wandering through the house. So if Trixie makes a vocal appearance, we apologize.
Yeah, well, you know, Trixie has some very strong opinions about the headlines we're talking about, and she always has questions for our guests too. She enjoys talking to people just like we will. You know, she's a dog, but she's also a journalist.
So, as we mentioned last week, Friday was her 2-year birthday.
Yes.
She turned 2 on Friday, and my husband was actually doing a story, a NASCAR story, and I forget the lady's name. It's Jamie something TV, but she rescued dogs. She has rescue dogs as well, and so he put Trixie in his story that aired on Fox 2, and Trixie got a lot of recognition out of that story, making her big appearance. But here on the Megacast, all we hear is her big barks and her whines.
Yeah, we hear her. We haven't. She hasn't jumped up yet to make an appearance on the screen and really steal the show. We're waiting for that day, but for now, we'll take her opinions in the background.
And we've seen it so many times on the show, but also so many Zoom interviews where people's pets are, bombing them, Zoom bombing them. And I think Folgers Coffee, they have a new commercial or a couple commercials out, and they're kind of making fun of this, and it's hilarious, where the mom picks up the coffee cup and tries to move as the kid is behind her. So really at this point in time, we're more than a year into this pandemic. Just have fun with it. It happens to all of us.
Yeah, it's something that's just becoming more and more common. I think people are less like, oh, hey, look, it's someone's cat or someone's dog behind them. Oh, that person's kid walked in from the back there when they were in the middle of an interview or in the middle of a meeting or something. It's just become commonplace now because we've been doing this for so long. It's just now something we expect to be something that can happen when we're on these virtual calls, as has been the case for the past 14 plus months.
So, hey, it's going to be 80 degrees today. Can you believe that?
I know, I'm already overheating in here. Maybe it's just because the temperatures in this building are a little fluctuating. But, you know, it's going to be 80 degrees. It's going to be a beautiful day outside, a complete change of pace from the last several days where it's been kind of moderately chilly, but not too bad. But today, just unseasonably hot, and then we'll go right back to normal temperatures and rain.
Last week, we got snow.
Yes, last week Tuesday.
This week, 80-degree temperatures, only in Michigan.
Only in Michigan, yes. Yeah, I had that conversation over the weekend on a family Zoom call with my grandparents, who of course lived in Michigan for a number of decades, but are now living in Arizona. And we're talking, I heard you guys got some snow last week, and we're getting storms all week. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. We got snow last week Tuesday, but it's okay because this week Tuesday it's going to be 80 degrees and sunny.
So I know we are going to have Eastern Market on a little bit later, as well as English Gardens. And I will say sometimes I use these opportunities to ask them a lot of questions because our tree's not blooming now because it started to bloom, and then we did get the snow, and now the hot weather. How does that impact all of our flowers and plants? Because this, we all get to be so eager here in Michigan. You get the buds on the trees, and so you get excited. And so sometimes when we had that really warm spell for the first, couple weeks of April, a lot of people were going out, starting to buy some flowers, but then the snow came. So will they survive? That's going to be the big question.
Yeah, that's I think it's on a lot of people's minds, especially this year when we've had this odd fluctuation in weather that we normally have in the change of the season from winter to spring, but not quite this sustained, where we're almost entirely through the month of April, and you're still having that back and forth. Usually by now, we're through the frost, we're through the back and forth, and we're fully into spring, and at least at moderate temperatures. So that's probably a concern, a valid concern for a lot of people that are running gardens and are tending to lawns and trees in their yards over this season, this year, and taking that extra hobby under themselves during the second year of the pandemic.
So, Tyler, I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you're outside, like if you go outside exercising, do you wear a mask all the time?
If I'm around other people, I will. I'll have one at least handy, but generally I don't. Generally I don't if I'm outside exercising. Usually I keep my exercising to be just alone anyway, just because I can self-motivate in that arena, and so I'm not really around other people, but if I am, I'm courteous of them. I'll at least take the mask out and put it on until I've passed them or keep some distance.
So, as you know, we live on the West Bloomfield Trail, and we see kind of a mixed bag. You'll see people running together or walking together, still outside. The trail's not really that busy, but some people are wearing masks, some people are not wearing masks. We know that the CDC later today is going to be releasing new guidelines surrounding the issue of should you wear masks while you're outside. My anticipation is they're going to say, unless you're in a big crowd, no, because I believe it's less than 10% of the COVID cases are transmitted while you're outside. And typically that's going to be for people that are close to one another or very crowded situations, like, if you're, at a concert or something of that nature. So we'll be looking for those guidelines to come down a little bit later today, but it'd be interesting to see what they have to say too, the difference between people that are vaccinated and not vaccinated.
Yeah, and I think that's going to clear up a lot of confusion for people and for organizations such as sports arenas and outdoor ballparks as well, who have already put systems in place with the minimal capacity that they're at, or the reduced capacity that they're at, to keep cohorted groups socially distanced. There may not be a need for those groups to then wear masks on top of that if they remain in that distancing, unless they're close together or they're intermingling between those cohorts or between groups at those stadiums. So that's something that will definitely be at the attention of stadiums and of sports fans and those going to other outdoor events as they are planning for that, because a lot of these are planning in advance with a certain number of people, a certain number of tickets in certain places, and have requirements in place that have gotten some complaints. We've seen complaints here and there about people not liking that they have to wear masks while they're already distanced in a ballpark like Comerica Park, and maybe that's not going to be the case. We'll see what happens. We don't know exactly what's going to be announced later on today from the federal government and the CDC on those guidelines, but something along those lines is to be expected.
So for those individuals out there, if you've been struggling trying to get a COVID vaccine, or just even trying to fit it into your schedule, because it can be difficult, you don't know what your schedule is day to day. Well, Meijer is going to start offering walk-up COVID-19 vaccines at all of its stores. So that's the latest news. They're going to be offering the walk-up COVID-19 vaccines at all of its pharmacies. The Michigan-based retailer announced yesterday it's launching its walk-up vaccine program at all of its stores using the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. So the retailer said every Meijer store is only going to have, though, about 100 doses at a minimum per week for customers to get the vaccine. Doses are going to be administered on a first-come, first-served basis. And while limited vaccines will be available on a walk-up basis at all Meijer stores, people interested in getting the vaccine can still register to get an appointment by texting COVID to 75049. People can also register online. Monday's announcement comes as the chain announced that it has crossed the 1 million mark for doses administered through its in-store clinics. So we're starting to see more of these walk-in vaccines throughout the pandemic, because fewer people are willing to register to get one. So they're trying to reach as many people as possible. And for people just like the flu shot, we know that typically it's available everywhere. They're trying the same platform as well, being able to just walk in. I think Beaumont is also doing some walk-in vaccine clinics this week as well.
Yeah, and I think this is just the way that the format's going to be going forward, where there's going to be walk-in opportunities, and if there's an influx of walk-ins, they could always arrange appointments from there. As they've seen a lull in people signing up for appointments. There have been articles that have been released lately about the situation with some people that are not coming back for their second vaccine, or are forgetting their appointments, or aren't making appointments for their second vaccine, and time kind of slips by them. And so having these walk-in opportunities provides more flexibility in people's schedules, which in every aspect of life in today's day and age is something that people are seeking. And it can maybe get people through the lines a little bit quicker, as a lot of people have been waiting for their county to call their number up, or to send them an email and say it's your turn in line, or from other organizations for a while. And if they're not willing to wait any longer, they can go and walk into one of these places that's providing walk-in vaccinations and get themselves into the process a lot quicker. And hopefully that ends up meaning that we can maybe get through to that 70% threshold in the state of Michigan, 70% or above for herd immunity, and get out of this pandemic a little sooner. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and we saw this with the testing in the beginning as well. Remember, tests weren't available, so it was a struggle to get them. And then it's the same thing here. It's supply and demand. And so the supply is catching up with the demand. But the unfortunate part about this, some of these vaccines, remember the Pfizer vaccine has to be stored at these super cold temperatures. So we are hearing more and more stories right now. If they don't get these vaccines in the arms of people, the vaccines go bad.
Yeah, and that's another reason for having walk-in availability, is because they don't have enough people signing up for these vaccines on a daily basis. And there are people that are coming in and out of these various locations that are providing COVID-19 vaccines, like a CVS, like a Meijer, like a Walgreens, wherever it may be provided, a Kroger, and so on and so forth. If they're able to take walk-in vaccination appointments at that point in time, they're at least reducing the number of those those doses that are going to have to end up being spent doses that are no longer going to be viable because they go past their storage period. So if nothing else, it's reducing the loss or doing their part to meet that quota each day and get all those shots in arms if they can get to 100% at this point.
So also making news today, the new school outbreaks here in Oakland County limited to just 5 schools last week. However, 25 Oakland County schools are dealing with ongoing outbreaks. So of the 189 new COVID cases at Michigan schools reported for the week of the 17th through the 23rd of April, 13 cases occurred and 5 outbreaks at 5 schools here in Oakland County. That is slightly less than the previous week, when there were 21 cases and 8 outbreaks at 7 schools here in the county. So an outbreak, keep in mind, is defined by the state as 2 or more cases that have shared exposure on school grounds and are from different households. So not, 2 students that are brothers and sisters. So the 5 schools with the new outbreaks are University Hills Elementary in Rochester Hills, Norup International in Oak Park, Clarkston's Sashaball Middle School, Birmingham Seaholm High School. They've had a problem there at the high school, and Waterford's Mason Middle School. So all were among students, except for at Mason, where only 1 staff member was involved. So ongoing outbreaks were reported with 81 cases, down from 99 a week ago at 26 schools with 31 outbreaks here in Oakland County. So we are starting to see a little bit of progress here. As we've said before, the health department, the state health department, releases these numbers once a week on Mondays. There was a big push last year to really try to get the health department to start releasing these numbers, as well as naming the schools. And so they have come up with this program where they release it every Monday. Of course, for people that attend those schools, the schools are informing their population well before the numbers are reported publicly as well.
Yeah, each school district has their policies, and each school has their individual policies as well in some cases regarding outbreaks. How big of an outbreak is too much, to the point where we need to reduce our operations or shut down temporarily our operations. We've talked about that before, notably with Walled Lake's Superintendent Ken Gutman, and those interviews are on our website at civiccentertv.com. And the good news here is that we are seeing these slowly but surely dip kind of right alongside the Michigan COVID-19 cases and deaths, as they're slowly dipping as well. So this spike looks like it's starting to turn in the right direction. Of course, you can't really say that definitively this early on in the change in the numbers, but if nothing else, we have a reason to be very slightly optimistic about where things are going here in Michigan, and hopefully we just continue to take those precautions and continue to be extra safe and try to help everybody else turn this corner so we can get out of this major outbreak, because our hospital systems continue to be very concerned, and this spike was a major one and could cause some complications as we're trying to get out of this pandemic.
So some promising news, more promising news. Michigan reports declining coronavirus case rates for the 8th straight day. So we had like 6,524 new cases, 35 additional deaths, sadly, though, between Sunday and Monday, April 25th and the 26th. That means the state averaged about 3,200 additional cases over the last 2 days. That's very low compared to where we have been. The state was averaging about 4,500 new COVID cases per day and 60 new deaths per day over the last week. This is the 8th straight day the state's reported a declining 7-day case increase, and its lowest average since March 29th. 81 of Michigan's 83 counties reported new cases on Monday, as just some counties in the northern section of the state did not have any new cases. Of course, Wayne County led in new cases, Macomb, and then Oakland County. We were in third place with 716. So hopefully this is good news and a new trend that we are going to start seeing. And I think a lot of that will be related to the weather as well, as more and more people will be comfortable being outside with the warmer weather rather than being indoors, Tyler.
Yeah, and you're really looking at that, 10 to 14 day period that we've seen over the last several months be the incubation period, or the period of change that really determines the outlook with the COVID-19 situation in the state of Michigan and across the country and the world. And so seeing that continue to trend downward over that 8-day period, it's looking that's a good look. We got to see it kind of sustain itself a little bit longer, continue to take that dip downward. But if that is in fact a trend, and that is where our numbers are going, that's great news. That's going to be a joy to a lot of people to hear, and hopefully we continue to see that news coming through when these daily cases and weekly case numbers come through, and we see ourselves coming out of this what was a major spike here in the state of Michigan, a really potentially scary situation.
And as always, you can find the latest headlines. Go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, and there you'll find the latest headlines. We post them each and every morning. And then at the top of the page, we also have direct link to valuable resources such as the state of Michigan, Oakland County, as well as the CDC, so that you can be informed for yourself as well. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we have a great lineup for you on today's show. Here in the 10 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by the president of Eastern Market just after the break. And then following him in the 10 o'clock hour, the CEO for Lighthouse will be with us. That's all next here on the Megacast.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries, but you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. My Bridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. As a reminder, Tyler and I are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon live, bringing you long-form interviews as we all continue to navigate the COVID-19 crisis. You can always find us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Municipal Access. If you have cable, you can tune us in on Channel 15. If you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. And you can listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And then today we are also live streaming today's edition of the Megacast on our Facebook page, Civic Center TV, and 89.3 Lakes FM. With that, this is springtime, and especially with today's weather, we are catching spring fever here in Michigan. And what does that mean? A trip to the farmers market, and one of our favorite farmers market, Eastern Market in downtown Detroit. Let's bring in Dan Carmody. He's the president of the market. Dan, always great having you with us. How are you?
I'm terrific, Ronnie. How are you doing today?
We are great. How lucky for you to be outside.
Yes, it is. My default office is in my man cave in the basement. For the viewers, this is much more inspiring. So.
And the birds sound lovely.
Yeah, I'm keeping our two corgis at bay. They have their bark collars on. Otherwise, they'd be out here wrestling. And great entertainment, but would interfere with the important messages I have to give to them.
Well, and let's jump into those messages, because we do know Eastern Market is it is such a gem here in our community. In fact, you guys are being nominated as USA Today's Reader's Choice Top 10 Best Public Markets. Congratulations to you. But we've known that all along.
Yeah, well, it's a real source of pride to have been associated with the market since 2007. You know, the Eastern Market Partnership is a nonprofit that manages the market on behalf of the city that still owns the market. And it's a joy to go to work every day, because it's a place that people, everybody thinks it's theirs, and they come at it from so many different directions. And certainly the spring season is important at the market. You know, we are a major source of flower and plant sales. And, you know, we've had to make those adjustments to COVID, and 2021 is going to be just as different from normal as 2020 was.
And so with that, Dan, there are so many different aspects to running the market. Number one, it's the public, but number two, it's also the farmers and the supply. So as people start to return, because we're a year into this, last year at this time, we were still all uneasy as to what was happening. Hunkering down. Right? That was so true. So this year, do you anticipate the crowds are going to get back to somewhat pre-pandemic normal numbers?
Well, it's fascinating. We're open year-round. We never closed because of the pandemic. Generally speaking, the first quarter of the year is our slowest, and last year it went from slowest to slower. So, April was awful. And then from May and, mid-May on, we began to see numbers slowly kind of climb back to, I wouldn't say normal, but reasonable. And quite frankly, the first quarter of this year, testimony to people's sort of cabin fever and wanting to do it that is normal. We had the busiest first quarter we've ever had. And so we see the spring numbers much busier than they were a year ago. But we have to take precaution. Flower Day itself is our single largest day of the year. Upwards of 100,000 people show up. We simply can't do that in a COVID world. So instead of focusing on one day, we're going to try to remind people that flowers has always been a season in Eastern Market, and it starts early May and it ends late June. And you can come any Saturday and get a great selection of flowers. And this year we're jump starting our Tuesday market, which tend to start as crops come in to eat in June. We're going to actually start the Tuesday market in May, 4 weeks with nothing but flowers on the 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th. So we're going to spike flower season. There'll be no flower day, but you'll be able to come on Tuesdays for flowers and shop a little more leisurely. And then Saturdays will be crazy. But you'll have a great selection on Saturdays as well.
And I will say, I actually like this better because I've been there for flower days, not only covering it as a reporter, but also as a shopper. And parking can be a nightmare, getting in and out with the crowd. So I think this is a great way to manage it, but also bringing people into the city in the week as well, because people are working differently now. So they have a little bit more flexibility in their schedule. So do you anticipate those Tuesday flower days are going to be pretty popular?
Yeah, we've seen, we've run the Tuesday market as a seasonal, farmers market for the last 8 years or so. And those numbers have been steady. Not they don't compare, it's a scale model of the Saturday market. It's obviously not the Saturday market crowd, but we expect that, we'll have reasonable traffic because, as you say, people do have a lot more flexibility in when they're choosing to work and when they can slot in some free time. And we think the Tuesday market, as we find with people shopping for groceries, it's way more convenient. It's way less jostling. If you're a senior citizen, or if you're a family with small children, the chaos of the Saturday market, which I find highly contagious and desirable, isn't something that maybe, if you're small kids or afraid of getting jostled as you walk through the market. So we think it's a lot more convenient. The parking, you can pull up basically and almost curbside and get your plants and flowers. So yeah, there's and more than not, it's just to remind people that it is a season. It's not a day. And while that flower day had become such a wonderful tradition, and we hope in 2022 it comes back bigger and stronger than ever. But it's really a festival day, and it's as much about the walking the street and all the side lots as it is about the great. It will be a one-day bigger selection of flowers, but that's not to say that the Saturday and Tuesday markets won't have a great selection of flowers.
We're speaking with Dan Carmody. He's the president for Eastern Market Partnership. And with that, Dan, if I can ask, what is the selection on Tuesday going to be? Because we know that last year was a very challenging year for our farmers and supply was down. Do you anticipate it's going to be back and the selection is going to be there?
Well, last year was a very fascinating year. In April, we worried a lot about our flower growers because sort of the precursor to flower season is Easter weekend, when some of the early flower growers will show up and sell Easter lilies and other, Easter-specific plants. And we were still under the essential. We basically got a couple of vendors into the market it was a gray area with regard to the governor's mandates at that time. And so virtually no Easter sales took place. So last year we devised a popular, it turned out to be successful, but pretty costly, a place where people go online and order flowers and then arrange for pickup so they didn't have to get out of their car at all. And we did some sales that way. But between Saturdays and their own greenhouses, what happened last year was that people recognizing that they were going to spend more time around their house, flower growers never had a better year than they had last year. So it started slow, but May and June flower sales were as strong as they've ever been. And the early signs are that that's continuing this year. Now, I'll say that I was fooled once before when I first got here in 2008. If you recall, the recession really started in the fall of that year. And in the spring, flower sales were, times were tough in Michigan before they got tough nationally. And when we go into recession or periods of economic question, flower sales go up because they're a cheap form of entertainment. You can't take the week of vacation, but you're going to spend more time in your patio. You buy a couple extra flats of flowers. 2009 taught us that when things are really, really, really bad, people don't buy flowers at all. They save their money for rent and for gas and for utilities. And so we still think we're in recession, or, we're still coming out of the economic turmoil of COVID. And we expect a banner year with flower sales. Percentage-wise, most of our growers will probably sell more in their own greenhouses and through other channels in the sell market because we won't have that one-day massive explosion of flower sales. But we'll have 4 or 5 really good Saturdays, and we'll have hopefully 4 really good Tuesdays to help those farmers succeed.
So Dan, with that, behind the scenes, what does it take to be able to get some of the vendors here? Are you competing with other markets, or are you guys so well established, some of these farmers want to come to you?
This is the first, we're actually seeing a reluctance to come back to market this year just because sales were so strong at their own greenhouses on their farms last year. People went and got the flowers where they needed to go get them. And so the biggest issue, like I think you'll hear time and time again, isn't that farmers don't want to come. It's just that they can't find enough staff to be able to do multiple things in multiple times. So we have a fewer growers coming this year than last year. It's not because they don't want to be here. It's just because they can't find the bodies to operate multiple, places, both on their farm and at Eastern Market.
That is a really such a sad predicament that so many businesses are in right now. Right. Being unable to even be able to sell what they want to sell because they can't find the help. We do know, though, Eastern Market isn't just about the flowers. Right. You have great food as well. How have the food sales been? Because I do think in the pandemic, especially in the beginning, we started to pay more attention about our food source and where our food was coming from.
Yeah, we were in the middle of a tsunami, if you will. Roughly in this country, half of our food is purchased at restaurants and eaten off premise, eaten either delivery or on premise, and half of our food comes from grocery stores. And all of a sudden, that whole half of the food sector was sort of closed down. And so early on, there was a lot of food trapped in that sales channel that, a supplier to restaurants doesn't necessarily supply grocery stores. And so there was, you go back to the early days of the pandemic, there were a lot of barren shelves on the one hand, and then you had wholesalers sitting on $3 million worth of fruits and vegetables that they had no market for. So we pivoted pretty quickly. We did some innovative things. I think we started a Tuesday drive-through market last April where a lot of these wholesale businesses sold to restaurants, actually sold in bulk to consumers. And we had a car line about a mile long for about 3 weeks where people, on behalf of their neighborhoods or block parties, would kind of buy a trunk load of product and distribute it when they got home. So eventually, those supply channels kind of evened out, and the restaurant industry slowly has opened back up. So that's not the problem it was. But there's still a lot of people with food need. We started packing food boxes as an alternate way for people to support the Saturday market. And we were up to about 400 boxes a week where people didn't have to get out of their car. They could buy from Saturday vendors, pull up, and someone would put it in their trunk with a prepaid food box. And that put us in position then when the federal government came up with a program called Farmers to Family Food Boxes. We were packing between May and September 2,000 food boxes a week.
Wow.
In addition to 1,000 other food boxes a week between the Saturday program and that support we got from local funders for group homes, senior centers, and places like that. So we changed our whole business model last year. Instead of the work we do around food access, about trying to get fresh fruits and vegetables into places where they don't ordinarily go, and setting up mobile farm stands, we were simply delivering it in boxes instead. And what we noticed is that a lot of people came to the stark conclusion that maybe eating well is important to your health. And what we saw with the comorbidities of type 2 diabetes and the death rates from COVID were pretty striking, that people that had good autoimmune systems because they ate a diet with a lot of nutrient-dense foods were surviving the pandemic better than those who weren't. And what we saw was the farmers who were growing row crops like flower growers, had a pretty good year because the health message got through. Some of our specialty vendors doing exotic things that maybe were more one of a kind, and you kind of needed to taste to see if you wanted to commit your $10 to that jar of mustard or jam. Those vendors didn't do as well because we couldn't allow sampling. And so the pandemic was really selective for us at the market. Our revenues were down because we had to space out vendors. So even if vendors wanted to come, we couldn't take as many as we usually do. We basically had a 50% occupancy on vendors. So our revenues were down there. The offset from doing services like the food box helped to sustain us. But that was one time only. We're still spacing out our vendors this year. We also do a lot of events at the market when we're not operating the market, and those went away almost entirely. They're starting to creep back in now. We're booking weddings, modest in size compared to the old days, but we're starting to see that uptick again. So, 2021 is going to be every bit as difficult to navigate as 2020 was, but there is light at the end of the tunnel.
So with that, Dan, we're speaking with Dan Carmody. He's the president for Eastern Market Partnership. We do know you are a nonprofit, and a lot of your bottom line, you are supported by renting out the sheds for so many of the events, the weddings, as you just mentioned, but also we know there have been food truck rallies and so many other things that have gone on there at Eastern Market. Do you anticipate as we keep going, are they going to make a comeback, and will that help your bottom line? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, we typically do $500,000 in rental sales to those kind of uses. Last year was like $50,000.
Wow.
This year we expect, we won't get back to $500,000, but we'll get more than halfway back. And what we're seeing is, unlike a lot of rental facilities, a couple of our sheds don't have enclosures, so they're kind of hybrid indoor-outdoor spaces. So people feel maybe a little bit more comfortable doing a trade show in shed 2 that has air flowing through it than they do in a traditional setting in a room that has no fresh air going through it. So we've picked up some kind of new events because of that. But again, this last wave is just starting to trend down. So, it's still very much week to week to see, how this thing plays out. A new strain comes through and those numbers could go back up. So we can't make too many assumptions at this point.
So with that, just another minute or two with you here on the Megacast. We know the CDC is expected today to release new guidelines regarding wearing a mask outdoors. If they come out to say, hey, vaccinated people don't have to wear a mask, do you anticipate that's going to change anything you are doing there at Eastern Market? Well,
because of the way, we have, for the second season now, had to put up temporary fencing, something I hate to do, because one of the great attractions of the market is that it has 1,000 front doors. Yeah. And we want people to come from wherever they found their parking space to make a beeline to where they need to go. But we do at times need to control the total number of people on site just to try to stop the spread. And so we have had very high compliance with people wearing face coverings and masks. And even though people are vaccinated, once people are in the market, it's really hard you're not going to maintain 6 foot of separation. Let's be honest about that. You're going to be in a travel lane with a lot of other people walking in the same place. You're not, a lot of the markets, a lot less of the market the last 2 years has been people bringing in their 3-generation extended families. And that's kind of sad, but we're starting to see more of that now pop up again. And the masks just make it easier to be able to continue to have that close interaction with people. So we hope that mask wearing in our public outdoor space remains high, just because it's easier than trying to get people 6 foot apart from each other.
Yeah, and I will say, when I was there a few weeks ago, it is a little confusing with the fencing and how it's going. So I have to ask too, what's up with the parking garage? I know it's owned by the city of Detroit. Do you anticipate, are they going to refurbish that to help you with parking there at Eastern Market?
Little surprise. They've spent $2 million. It has been refurbished. The new lighting, it looks much better.
So is it open now? It is open now.
They opened it 1st of April. It's during the week. They're actually, as City Hall employees return to work, they're going to begin renovations of some of the downtown parking structures. So people are going to be parking there and then shuttled to City Hall and other city lots during the week. And then it will be available on Saturdays and Sundays for market customers. There is a fee. It is $5, one-time $5 fee to park there, but it's literally 60 feet from the main line of the market. So nobody's using it. It was closed for so long. I think the people, it's out of their mind, but it's much improved. It's clean. It's light. It's safe. So we encourage people to look up that option if you don't want to carry heavy plants. The traditional 1 or 2 blocks as otherwise might be the case.
And we know it will help some of the businesses outside of Eastern Market that are right there. They have their storefronts right there. So it's going to help some of them as well. And we should remind people, Eastern Market is more than just the market. It really is a neighborhood, and support the market, but also support the small businesses that surround the market as well.
Yeah, we've had, last few years, there's been some, we lost some of our longtime merchants. There's been some change, but the bottom line is we're a place dedicated to small independent businesses, and we've been keeping track as real estate trends change. We have 22 more businesses, small businesses today than we had in 2017 because we did need investment in real estate. We had a lot of spaces that were dormant or vacant for a long time and need to be broken up into smaller spaces, and that's what's happened. So we have an increasingly diverse mix of storefront businesses in addition to the market. We're open this time of year just on Saturdays from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., but starting next week, we'll open up on Tuesdays, 9 to 3. And then the first Sunday in June, we'll add Sundays from 10 to 4. But beyond that, those 3 days that we're open during the summertime, Eastern Market businesses are open 6 or 7 days a week. And it's really a nice, with all the murals and things around the market, even if the market is closed, it's a nice urban experience to come out and hang around and bring your bike and take advantage of the DeQuinter Cut and the great art and architecture of the Market District.
Dan Carmody with us here on the Megacast. He's the president for Eastern Market Partnership. Dan, we always appreciate your time.
Well, thanks. And Ronnie, same to you.
So happy springtime to you. Thanks again for having your interview outdoors because I've enjoyed the birds.
Yeah, I've had my headphones in, so you've enjoyed it more than I have. So.
Dan Carmody, President Eastern Market. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we return, we'll be joined with the CEO for the Lighthouse. That's next here on the Megacast.
Thanks, Ronnie.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/one small step. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe holding things down for us back there in West Bloomfield. For so many people, this has been such a trying time for them because we know the need for help is greater than ever before. And answering that call for help is the Lighthouse. To talk a little bit more about how they are doing and some of the needs that they need met right now, let's bring in Brian Hertz. He's the president and CEO for the Lighthouse here in Michigan. Brian, thanks again for being with you. It's always great having you.
Good to see you again, Ronnie. Appreciate taking the time to have this conversation.
So with that, tell us, how are things going right now? How is the need? Are you able to assist the people that need it?
It's a tough question. The need is certainly greater than typical, but thankfully the resources to respond to that need have also been significantly greater than typical. So this has been a really interesting time for our organization, starting right from the beginning of the pandemic, trying to make sure that we were prepared and aligned all of our resources around a robust response for the most vulnerable people in our community that rely on us in normal times to help them navigate challenges. What we didn't expect, what I'm extremely grateful for, is the significant increased investment from the philanthropic community, from foundations in our community, from individual donors in our community, as well as some of the public resources that have come into our community, both directly to individuals in need, as well as to organizations like ours to assist folks. So yes, the need is significantly greater. It's almost unquantifiable at this time. Maybe we'll be able to do a postmortem and have a better sense of it. But thankfully, we are well equipped. Since the last time I was on your show, for example, we were selected as one of 3 organizations in Oakland County to administer $54 million in rental assistance to stop evictions and to keep folks from becoming homeless, which was frequently the question throughout the pandemic that folks would ask me. What's Lighthouse going to do? We provide an emergency homeless shelter program and housing programs. What's Lighthouse going to do when the eviction moratorium lifts and folks actually start facing evictions? And the answer is, thankfully, that we're well equipped to address rental arrears for qualifying folks and ensure that we don't end up having to pick up the pieces on the other side with a lot of people experiencing the trauma of homelessness. So that doesn't mean that we're on, that we're on the end of this journey by any means, and we certainly have a lot of resources that we provide that we still do need significant financial supports to continue at our current volume. But yeah, it's been a challenging but also affirming time for our organization.
So with that, Ryan, too, we have a housing crisis here in the state of Michigan, even prior to the pandemic. And your organization, you're trying to do so much. You do so much. With that, how is the housing crisis, do you anticipate, going to be coming out of this? Because on the other side of that, we do know some of the property owners, the landlords, are struggling to pay their bills as well.
That's true. So when it comes to rental units, we're hopeful that these programs that address rental arrears of tenants will both assist the tenants in maintaining their housing, but also support landlords' ability to provide that service in our community and to continue to invest in the quality and recapitalize properties, et cetera, right? So we do believe that on the rental side, this particular intervention of it's called the COVID Emergency Rental Assistance Program, we believe that will be beneficial and hopefully a stabilizing force. That said, prior to COVID-19, just in Oakland County, we had 20,000 households that were at or below 50% of the area median income who were rent burdened. So folks who are already low income and paying more than a third of their gross income on their rent. So we already had a pretty dramatic problem in our community around affordability and rental. We're also seeing, sort of paradoxically, given the current environment, that the single family market has gone up, and that makes homeownership a little bit further out of reach for some of the folks served historically. And there's a lot of folks who maybe we wouldn't have necessarily had to serve historically, who as a result of the changes in the economy as a result of this pandemic are now a part of that population. And with home ownership a little bit further out of reach, and while it may be true that we might be able to stabilize the existing rental capacity of our community, there's still significant need that is only going to have been exacerbated as a result of this particular situation.
Ryan Hertz with us here on the Megacast. He's the president and CEO for Lighthouse here in the area. And with that, Ryan, too, I know some people that had rental properties that now, because the housing market is so tight, they are, instead of choosing to rent, are putting these houses on the market. And I anticipate that's going to, make the rental market even that much tighter going forward over the next few years.
Yeah, and it's not just people who own rental properties. It's also people who are homeowners that are thinking about maybe they'll sell their home and rent for a little bit to take advantage and try to time the real estate market. And you're right, between those two forces, that will have an impact. That will have an impact. Most of the folks that we serve are predominantly in the multifamily rental market, but certainly that will have an influence that will sort of trickle down, so to speak, to impact that market as well.
So with that, Ryan, we're a year into this pandemic. Do you see light at the end of the tunnel?
Great question. For our organization, we were very, very heavily volunteer reliant prior to the pandemic, and really during the pandemic as well, but in different ways. So we had to pivot to, we went from serving 300 to 400 households a week in our food pantries to 5,000 households a week in our food pantries during this period. And the volunteer force that was required to keep that up was significant and greater than in the past in that area of our work. And at the same time, our emergency shelter, which really relied heavily on volunteers, we had to pivot in order to keep folks safe. In that program is now totally non-congregate, and we're using hotel rooms still to provide that service. So it's interesting to see, a light at the end of the tunnel in the sense that we've been having to worry so much and continuously respond to potential exposures. And thankfully we've had quite a bit of success in terms of our safety protocols, but the vaccines made a difference, right? Our ability to work with the county and get all of our staff members and regular on-site volunteers vaccinated made a big difference in our ability to refocus a lot of the energy we were spending on trying to keep people safe back to, yes, we're going to continue our safety protocols, but boy, did we just reduce a big chunk of that risk. And we can put a lot more of that energy into figuring out kind of how we land the plane that we built in the air during the pandemic, right? So, yes, I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously, there's a lot of things that could happen that could push that off further than any of us would like. But to date, what I've been seeing is encouraging.
That is good, because how are you doing on volunteers? Are you starting to get people back that want to volunteer again?
Yeah, we thankfully we have had a great team of volunteers through the entire pandemic, and certainly the greater access to vaccines is only going to help us in terms of the pool of folks who support us that would be willing to be on site and involved in various activities. So that has been a big positive.
We're talking with Brian Hertz. He's the president and CEO for Lighthouse. Any other programs that you have coming up that you want to share?
Sure. So we just completed a 64-unit affordable housing development in Oak Park. All the units are currently spoken for. Whenever I mention this, folks ask about access to those units. The units are spoken for, but we just opened our on-site community center. And we are close to closing and breaking ground on a couple other significant developments, one in partnership with the Pontiac Housing Commission, another in partnership with Catholic Charities of Southeast Michigan. So we're really excited to continue forward, despite, to some degree, we've been sidelined into focusing most of our energy on basic needs emergency services during the pandemic. Happy to be able to say that our longer-term initiatives focused on addressing the longer-term barriers to ending poverty in our community are still moving ahead full force. And we've had a lot of luck in those areas during this time. Of course, the pandemic has impacted those initiatives as well. Construction on our most recent development was held up a couple of months by the pandemic, and it certainly had an impact, but nothing that we won't be able to weather.
So Ryan, if I can ask you, we know that the focus there at Lighthouse is to help bring people out of poverty. And we see so many businesses right now that are having to reduce their hours or close down because they can't find enough employees. Is there a way to try to bridge these gaps and bring some of the people that need jobs, but maybe are facing other issues, such as especially childcare right now, with more kids learning remotely, or transportation, to try to bring these two sides together and lift everyone up?
It's a really complicated question. A lot of the lower income folks that we serve, a lot of the challenges are that a lot of the jobs that are available to them aren't sustainable for them to take. The cost of taking the job and trying to provide, daycare, whatever else might be necessary for the wages that are being made available, the math doesn't work. And so, our organization is a proponent and supporter of guaranteed basic income as an intervention in our community. It has to come from somewhere. If we have an affordable housing crisis, either we need to create more affordable housing, we need to pay wages so folks can access it, afford housing, or we need to otherwise support those households so that they can afford to work in our businesses in our community. So we are working on a pilot guaranteed income initiative currently with a handful of partners. And I'm happy to see another one of the kind of odd silver linings of the pandemic is that something that I think is generally an unpopular policy has been tested a little bit. And I think folks are starting to see that it isn't necessarily as detrimental as they may have thought, as we've actually seen direct cash payments to our residents, and the value of that to not just the residents but our economy, as we've seen what's essentially amounts to guaranteed income for children, the additions to the child tax credit. So I think that we have to see somewhere we have to see some relief for the families that we're talking about. And I recognize the challenge for the business community in that. It's hard to afford sometimes in certain lines of business to pay a living wage in our market, just like it's hard for families to afford housing in our market. So, as we continue to look at innovative solutions, I think that, yes, the answer is yes. There are ways. I think we just have to think differently than we have in the past.
So with that, and that's one thing, maybe the silver lining in the pandemic is pretty much every organization, every business, every government entity has had to think outside the box and do things differently. So some of those conversations prior to the pandemic would have been, no way. Now people are rolling up their sleeves and saying, how can we solve some of these problems? So let's hope that continues as we work our way out of the pandemic. And with that, Ryan, we know that you're always in need of donations. How can people help you and your organization out right now?
Certainly. So I appreciate you asking that. Currently, we're running a campaign focused on our COVID-19 emergency response expansion of basic needs services. So while we work in a lot of different areas, everywhere from stability services and housing development and community development, during the pandemic, we have dramatically increased, as I mentioned earlier, the volume of emergency food that we're providing to the community. And that comes at a cost. We are, thankfully, through our partnerships with our friends at Gleaners and Forgotten Harvest, where we're able to access quite a bit of food at a discount. But we're still spending, upwards of $20,000 a week on purchases of bulk wholesale food. And so we estimate that we'll need to raise around $1.5 million this year. Last year, we raised about $3.5 million to cover both the increase in our food costs as well as our hoteling initiative. We believe that we are resourced well enough to continue our hoteling initiative throughout the end of 2021, but we really do need support around the purchase of bulk wholesale food. And so folks can visit our website, lighthousemi.org, to contribute to that initiative. Currently, we have a $50,000 match on all donations, thanks to the McGregor Fund, who have been our friends among many other institutions in our community through this entire ordeal. And so we're grateful to anyone who's able. Of course, we don't want people to stretch themselves beyond what they're able in these times, but to anyone who's able, we greatly appreciate your support.
Well, it seems like throughout this time, we've had a lot of collaboration amongst our businesses and our nonprofits, trying to help organizations such as yours. So it's great to have you. And we wish you and your team the best as you continue on this journey.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Appreciate it.
Ryan Hertz with us here on the Megacast. He's the president and CEO for the Lighthouse of Michigan. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD, 88.1 WBFH. We'll be right back after this break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking with the co-owner of the Detroit City Football Club. That's next here on the Megacast.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
You're listening to the Oakland County Megacast on 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Back after these quick messages.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you back with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler, keep holding things down back there at Civic Center TV. As a reminder, Tyler and I are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon live. If you're unable to catch the show, we invite you to go to civiccentertv.com, click on Megacast. There you can watch previous episodes, or if you click the on-demand section, you can also watch just the individual interviews as well. So excited to have on our next guest. And for that, I'm actually going to break out my little swag. Hey, Sean Mann with us here on the Megacast. He's the co-owner for the Detroit City Football Club. So great to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, love the scarf.
You know what? It is one of the best times in local sports. I will go to one of your games over a Tigers game, a Lions game, any day of the week. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, well, I always say great, but I mean, it's certainly been a tough time to be in the business of gathering large groups of people together on a regular basis. But we are managing, and we actually have our first game with fans this coming Saturday. So it's exciting to, have a light at the end of the tunnel here.
That is, I know the fans are going to be so excited. But before we even kind of jump into this season and how you got here, let's talk about how you all got started, because you have a great story.
Yeah, no, so this is our 10th season for DCFC. It actually started out of a recreational soccer league I started in the city back in 2010. And through that, a group of us guys over beers said, hey, Detroit, deserves a soccer team. And, we thought we could do it and do it in kind of a grassroots entrepreneurial way that we felt kind of represented this time in the city of Detroit. And we each chipped in a couple $1,000, which is enough for training tops and a league fee and a lawnmower and some goals at Cass Tech. And we got going. And so now here we are, 10 years later, basically, and fully professional men's team. We've launched a women's team, and now we have over 2,400 kids that play in our youth system across Metro Detroit. So it's just been a pretty wild ride, to say the least.
Did you ever anticipate it would get this big?
Yeah, but I mean, I could never guess like how or when or who all would be involved. But I think we've always been pretty, ambitious. I mean, our stated goal is to be a Detroit soccer team. And, this is a sports town. And so I think we're always being driven to like keep growing and doing it in a way that's sustainable, but really captures kind of this region's love of sports and, in particular soccer.
Sean Mann with us here on the Megacast. He's the co-owner for the Detroit City Football Club. And with that, Sean, it really is about the fans. The fans make this league. And it's like you said, it's the interaction. So last year when things got shut down, how did the fans take it?
Yeah, I mean, we are not billionaires. My wife can attest to that. Like, we are just normal guys. And so, our lifeblood is those supporters who are in the stands at Keyworth and who follow and support this club. And so, for us, last year was going to be a huge year. It was our first year as a professional club, starting this national league. We actually had a game February 29th in LA, our first ever professional game. And then, the following week, kind of the wheels fell off. And just for us financially, it was a really tough time. Sponsor checks weren't all quite in the door yet. Our having people at Keyworth is like our main driver of revenue, whether that's ticket sales or merchandise or whatever. So, it put a huge crimp in our finances. But I guess not that we were too casual about it or flippant. Like, we always knew we'd find a way to get through this just because of that support that surrounds this team, the dedication that people have, the community that has grown around it. And so really, it was that community that made sure that we got through it. So last summer, we actually offered up, similar to like Green Bay Packers, we offered up 10% of our club, the equity in the club, to the fans. And through that capital raise, we had the reserves to get through 2020 and position ourselves this year for even more growth.
So what was the response? Did the fans step up?
Yeah. So we reached actually the federal limit on what we could raise in just over 4 days. It was funny, like, we worked with Lafayette American, the ad agency, good friends of ours, on an ad campaign. And the campaign went live on a Friday. Our billboards were supposed to go up on Tuesday. And by Tuesday morning, we hit the federal cap on how much we could raise. And so, there was these billboards up, but like, we actually weren't in a position to raise money. So, no, I mean, it was one of the things we actually couldn't we couldn't do any media about it until it went live. And so, from the moment it went live, people just jumped at it. And, that's what kind of drives us in a lot of ways, is having those fans in the stands, not just the players on the field who, definitely respond to it, but like us as the front office, and seeing that visually, that community. And so being denied that all last year, you did kind of feel like you're in a void. And so having people step up the way they did and invest in the future in the club, it was very, very reassuring and, heartwarming for us.
So we know Sean Mann with us here on the Megacast from Detroit City Football Club. And Sean, anyone who's ever been to a game knows it's an event. It is not just a sporting game. It really is an event. It's about the tailgating prior, the march over to the ball field. How are you going to manage that this year?
To your point, what I tell staff and then the players too, we're in the business of memories, right? And I think we've created the most memorable sporting experience in town right now. And it stays with you. It's that water cooler moment. Like Mondays, after your DCFC game, you tell people where you went. And actually, we did a fan survey. 83% of our fans in the last year, pre-COVID, had actively recruited a friend or family member to come to a game. That's our marketing arm. So we really orient ourselves around that match day experience, the one that the supporters create. And so, we've as we prepare for this, return here, it really is working with those supporters on, what we can do, what we can't do. I think you're going to see the smoke. You'll see some chanting. You're not going to see the bodies wedged up against each other, the massive fans like you would in the past. But I think people are going to be surprised by, just how much energy those 1,500 fans in Keyworth are going to bring to the match day.
So for those that maybe have not been to one of the games, typically the party starts at the Foaling Warehouse for kind of the pregame excitement, and then there is a march through the neighborhood over to the field there in Hamtramck, and it really is a sight to be seen. And it's like you said, I had a friend take me, and I was like, how did I not know about this? And then you tell other people, and you tell other people. But we do know, really the bottom line comes from those ticket sales, the merchandising sales, and, probably the food sales as well. But how is it going to be this year if you can't have as many fans in the seats?
So thanks to the support that we had from last year with our supporters investing in the club, we've actually been able to bring on some staff. And so, knowing that we were going to have capacity restrictions for a good portion of this year, we've been growing on the corporate partnership side. In particular, this Saturday's game will be our first ever game broadcast on statewide TV. And so actually in the top 5 markets in Michigan, we'll have stations covering the game. And so we've had some great corporate partners step up and, invest in the club as well. And so, that's kind of the way we're bracing for limited crowds and to position ourselves for growth going forward.
So with that, Sean, too, can you talk a little bit about the players? Where do you recruit them?
Yeah, so on the men's side, our head coach, Trevor James, he's coached at the top levels or been a scout at the top levels of the game globally and worked under some of the most legendary coaches in the world of soccer. And so his Rolodex and contacts are pretty limitless. And so we have some fan favorites who have been with us. Actually, we have one player who's been with us all 10 seasons, Cyrus Sadie. But there's just a large kind of cache of guys who are looking to get into the professional ranks. And so we have some local talent, but we also have players from, across the world on the squad. And so, I love Detroit sports. I enjoy my games at Comerica or Ford Field, but I think one thing that's differentiating us right now is that we're actually the team winning pretty consistently. I showed up at the office this morning and the guys just got back from our preseason tournament in Chattanooga, and they left the trophy on my desk here.
That's so awesome.
Pleasant thing to walk in on. So, since Trevor joined our coaching rank, this is his 3rd season. We've been in 5 competitions and we've won 4 of them. And so, so we have a culture of winning here that we're going to keep pushing, going forward. So. It's not just a fun atmosphere, but we win.
Yeah, I love that. You did good point, though. Detroit teams are not winning right now, and you are. And we know soccer is huge overseas and in Europe. While it's gaining steam here in the United States, especially around Olympic times. But do you anticipate as we go forward, it's going to continue to grow here in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you take anything for granted. I think it's been considered like the next sport for like a couple generations now on the cusp. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of investment. Frankly, teams didn't exist at our level, a decade ago when we first started this. So the rapid expansion of professional soccer, is pretty dramatic. And so, U.S. will be hosting the World Cup in 2026 with Mexico and Canada. And that always leads to a boost of interest in the sport. I think for us, though, the focus has always been creating a team that resonates with people here in Detroit and that people care about. And we're trying to build a generational, project here. So, we've been growing our youth ranks with the idea that, ideally maybe one of those kids someday will play for DCFC, but more than anything, we want them to have a positive experience, love the game for life, and in particular, love DCFC.
So this year, you're also bringing in the women's side.
Yeah. As I mentioned, we've now got over 2,000 kids in Metro Detroit that play for DCFC teams. And, I think as we were growing on that side, one of the things that people kept bringing up was that, where's the women's side? Where's the team for the girls to look up to? And so I guess, we knew we wanted to be in a place where we felt like we could do it right and we could treat the women's team equally to the men's team. And so, we finally, I feel like as an organization, we've gotten to that point. And so the women, they play a shorter season just because of the nature of their league, but games will be televised statewide. I know our fans are going to show up just in the same numbers and with the same passion for the women as the men's team. And, I think we're going to kind of reorient what, a women's soccer team could be in this country at this level, without a doubt.
And that is so fun. And especially if you have the capacity limits, this is twice the fun this year.
Yeah. Right. It's I think some of our fans, especially the ones who do all the organizing and planning, are a bit intimidated by just the sheer number of games we're going to have this year. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Pretty much every Saturday night, we got a game at Keyworth, in May, June, and July. So it should be great.
So with that, how can people get tickets? Do they have to be season ticket holders this year?
So we already sold out of our season tickets, given the capacity restrictions. We had a small limited number of tickets we sold for May, and we have not opened up tickets yet for late June or later in the season. We're just waiting for the next update from the state government, the health department. We're just taking it kind of a month-by-month basis just to see how the current situation evolves.
Sean Mann with us here on the Megacast. He is the co-owner for the Detroit City Football Club. And with that, Sean, you just mentioned, trying to help navigate the rules and regulations that come down. And sometimes they are at the last minute. What's that been like for you and your team? Because like you said, you're not, billionaires sitting behind, a ball team like the Tigers and with a staff of hundreds to quickly navigate and make these changes.
Yeah, I mean, right. That's why I think we have to kind of wait, until these rules come down. We also, as we've grown over the years, we now have Detroit City Fieldhouse, an indoor facility, the old Red Wings practice facility down just outside downtown, and inside that we have our bar restaurant. So, we've been navigating these regulations from multiple different business perspectives and all the youth clubs as well. And I think the governor and her team's done a commendable job. Inherently there's, some frustrations and, how things line up, but we understand where it's coming from. And also we're not going to be too casual when it comes to our fans' safety. And, our fans have been pretty clear about that as well. That they've been pretty cautious. So, all we can do is just hope people get their vaccines and numbers go down and we can start, getting back to some degree of normalcy when it comes to people at the stadium.
Just another minute or two with you here on the Megacast. We are starting to see more teams. I think the Dodgers just announced that they're going to have vaccinated sections. Do you anticipate anything like that down the line?
No, I don't. I mean, I think the situation's evolving to a point where, I saw Connecticut just announced yesterday that they're allowing 100% capacity at games. I think all we can do is hope and promote, people getting their vaccines and, doing what they can to be safe. And we'll just have to wait for the situation to play out.
How do you guys come up with all the chants and, the hoopla surrounding it? Because it's great marketing, Yeah. We've always had the adage as the front office, as the ownership that we are the host of the party, not the life of the party. And so we allow really our supporters to really, run with creating that atmosphere. And so, we have a relationship with them, but really that's on them. Like the smoke, the tifos, the big banner displays, the songs, there's some degree of like what's acceptable and what's not, but generally that's them. And we don't try to interfere. You're not going to see us with the cheerleaders or the flamethrowers. That's not our game day. It's really the kind of more participatory. It's the fans doing it and leading it. That's what really sets us apart. That is so fun. It is so fun. So with that, Sean, where can people find more information so that they can monitor if they want to try to get tickets to go to a game?
Yeah, our social media channels, Detroit City FC, all the main channels. The best way to follow us, our website, detcityfc.com.
Sean, Mann, anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, I mean, you can't make it down to the game if you don't already have tickets, but we'll be on TV 20 locally, and definitely check it out. It should be a great broadcast, and we'll look forward to winning for Detroit.
We like that you guys are winners, but you definitely know how to throw a party. So again, thank you. And thank you for all the hard work. I can't imagine what it's been like over the past 10 years. So we're lucky to have all of you. So thank you again.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Best of luck in the upcoming season. Sean Mann with us here, Detroit City Football Club. If you have not been to one of their games, you need to try to get a ticket this year. Help support the women. Get a ticket to one of the women's games. It is an event. You will have so much fun. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, the president for English Gardens will be with us. That's next on the Megacast.
In times like these, we have to believe in each other.
And we believe that you'll do the right thing.
When it comes to stopping the spread of COVID.
Follow the 3 W's.
Wear a mask.
Wash your hands. Watch your distance.
And when it's your turn to get the vaccine, take your shot.
It all comes down to the golden rule.
Treat others the way you want to be treated.
We're so close, Michigan.
We can do this together.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
With us here on the Megacast, I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe holding things down back there in West Bloomfield. As a reminder, we are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham area municipal access. If you have a cable, thank you. A portion of your fee helps support programming such as this. You'll find us channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM, The Biff. And then we are also live streaming today's edition of the show on our social media Facebook site. So you can find us there on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. For so many of us, the weather in Michigan is Michigan's weather. We know how it is every springtime. We get teased with the nice weather. We start to buy our plants, our tulips come up, and then snowfall. So how do you recover from that? And how can you have a beautiful lawn this year? Let's go ahead and bring in Rick Vespa. He is the president for English Gardens. The flowers look great behind you.
Thank you. It is a picture.
Oh, it is. So they're not live?
No. Right now, really don't have that kind of environment to film in. So,
well, I like that because I don't feel so bad because usually people on a Zoom background, we can kind of tell, but that one looks really good.
Thank you.
So with that, Rick, for the people that are a little bit worried right now because we had the snowfall last week on our tulips and our trees were starting to bloom, what advice do you have for them?
Well, in some ways, you've got to kind of let things take their own course. That being said, certain plants need protection, some don't. You planted pansies, for instance, they're fine. They're capable of handling snow and very, very cold temperatures and snapping back. Even the bulb plants, tulips, things like that. And most of your woody plants, trees and shrubs are going to be fine, with some exceptions like some flowering plants that you might have to protect, particularly the newer varieties of hydrangeas need protection from the severe cold because those flowers are on the old stems that are starting to produce those buds.
Oh, I'm sitting here thinking about my hydrangea. Now I'm worried because I talk to them every year to get them to grow.
That's a good idea. But, it only goes so far. And so, the simple answer to the question is things are all different plants require some different care when you have these wild swings in temperature. But it isn't new. It's been going on for years. But you have some new plant varieties that have kind of crept in along the way. So that creates a few more challenges than maybe we haven't experienced in years past.
We're talking with Rick Vespa. He's the president for English Gardens. I know that English Gardens, we have one right here in West Bloomfield. You've been around since 1954, but I'm sure you didn't experience a year like last year.
No, we've been around 67 years. My father and my two uncles founded the business. Now we have 9 second-generation members in the business, 4 third-generation members, and hundreds of dedicated people. We're known for our great people in our stores, and they really are the reason we are successful. But the reason I answer that with all that details, my father would never have imagined a year like we had last year. And in April of last year, we were closed in April of 20 for almost the entire month. And we were strategizing on how to reopen, spending time, energy, money on getting the stores prepared for reopening. And we were able to open, I think it was the 24th of April last year. And the demand was unprecedented. We were blessed to be a business that was in favor. People were growing their own fruits and vegetables, planting in the garden for fun and exercise. Plants make you feel good. The whole stay-at-home thing and home decorating and home improvement, a lot of that falls right into our category. So we were really blessed with a really great year, and this year is proving to be similar.
Yeah. So one of the things we're seeing with so many businesses right now, though, a shortage of employees. Are you experiencing that at English Gardens?
We are. We're having a lot of difficulty hiring. I won't get into my views on that, but there are some challenges right now that are there, but the truth of the matter is we're okay right now as far as staffing in our stores, but in the next several weeks, we ramp up quite a bit. We go from a core of about 100 and, let's call it 100 to 350 people. That's the change in the number of staff. So we use a lot of seasonal people. And basically, there are going to be some challenges going forward, I know. We have 6 stores in Metro Detroit, and then we have a landscape design build company as well. And the landscape side, we're having a lot of difficulty hiring as well.
Wow. Rick Vespa with us here on the Megacast. He's the president for English Gardens. So do you anticipate this year people are going to continue to stay home, and that means more improvements to their yards?
Absolutely. We're seeing that trend in plants, flowers, indoor plants, for instance, has been a trend for a couple of years, but it's really kind of gone crazy. So we're fortunate, we're blessed with relationships in the supply chain that allow us to stay in stock on things when other people maybe don't have inventory. But yeah, we're seeing trends in patio furniture. Of course, the gardening season is just starting. And, because of the temperatures and the weather fluctuation, typically your safe planting time is, around mid-May. But we're seeing a ramp up of people buying things early, getting ready early, putting permanent trees and shrubs, this permanent structure of the garden in now, and then they'll supplement with perennials and annuals as they go. But yeah, the trends are continuing.
So with that, Rick, as so many more people are spending more time in their gardens, are you guys having to be plant doctors a lot? Because despite talking to my plants and watering them, I still always manage to kill a lot of them.
Wow, you must be studying our our information, our website. It's a great question, and it is one of our specialties, and I appreciate you asking it, actually. We pride ourselves in successful gardening. One of the things we try to do, we're not a hard sell company. We try to make sure you get what you need for your project, everything that you need to do it successfully, how to plant properly, proper fertilizers, and the proper things to treat problems as they come along, and how to use them the right way. So in our stores, we have these garden pharmacies, as we call them. And we have staff there that are trained in diagnosing plant problems of all kinds. And then we have solutions to recommend for treatment. And we tell you how to use those, not just what they are, but how to use them. That's so important.
It really is. So I'm one of those people too. Typically in May, you buy a lot of your flowers, your perennials. Perennials are the ones that you buy every year, right? No, annuals. My annuals. I always get it mixed up. That tells you how black of a thumb I have, right? But despite my efforts, I always still manage to kill some, except for ferns. I do okay with the ferns. So then, do you typically see like a new surge of people come in like mid-July, usually around 4th of July, replacing all the plants that they killed?
Well, yeah. I'm sure that's one of the reasons people are still shopping in July, because things do. Some gardening is not a science. It's part, let me say it this way, it's part science, part art. So people try things, and when you try different things, sometimes you're surprisingly successful, and sometimes you get the opposite result. So but I think people are coming in to either replace things or jazz things up. Maybe they're having some parties or people over, not so much anymore, but I think that it's a combination of things, really. And that's another thing we pride ourselves in, is our assortment, not only in peak season, but in the extended seasons or the shoulder seasons. We tend to stay in stock with what's new and looking good.
Rick Vespa here with us on the Megacast. He's the president for English Gardens. Do you want to talk a little bit about indoor plants? Can you take some of the ones from outdoors and bring them indoors? Like I have like a Eastern lily right now. The flowers died off. But I'm like, can I plant that outside? I don't know.
Well, some people do and are successful. Again, I go back to the science and the art thing. When I talk to people in the store, it's funny. I'll say, no, you really can't do that. It's grown in a greenhouse. It's not really going to survive the winter. And then their next comment is, oh, I've done it before. So trial and error with some of this. But typically, those lilies are not going to come back year after year if you plant them in the ground. There are lilies that you plant in the spring and will flower in the summer. But again, there's different plants like perennials versus the bulbs versus, again, you mentioned annuals and perennials. So some of these plants do not survive inside and out. But to the houseplant thing, the craze in the houseplants, we're seeing houseplants used outdoors. And in your combination planters, people will now use some houseplants, which they're great accent plants. They give you a lot of different textures and colors we didn't have with just annuals. And those can be moved indoors. You'd have to pull them out of the containers or repot them, but they can be reused indoors.
So with that, Rick, what trends do you anticipate that you're going to see this summer?
Well, I think the trends are still very much fruit and vegetable gardening. Very, very, very strong. Again, the houseplant thing is continuing to be strong. General creation of an outdoor space or the outdoor room. People are building structures. You can actually create rooms with plant material. That's a really hot thing, and then supplementing with decor and patio furniture. It's that whole outdoor room and outdoor experience where people are spending more time at their home and want to enjoy the outdoors as much as the indoors.
So with that, Rick, with the springtime and the summer months, we know that we also get a lot of critters. The big problem in our area here is trying to keep the deer out of our gardens. Any recommendations or advice that you have for people?
Well, without getting into too much detail, the deer and the rabbit population have gone ballistic. And we have a number of controls. Most of them are organics things. They're not poisons. They're organic sprays that you use or granules that you use. And then there's physical barriers like fences and cages and things like that. So there are ways of preventing or discouraging the animals, but there are so many out there, it's very, very difficult. There's also some plants that are more resistant to deer and rabbit, or mostly deer, than others. We have a list in the store of those plants that can help you when you're making your planting decisions.
That's good advice, because I will say, I know some of my neighbors have started putting like the fencing around their plants, but to me, it takes away from the beauty to try to, prevent the deer from eating them, because last year they went to town on all my hostas. And then when they started on my hydrangea, I was like, oh, no, we're going to have a talk here. But you want to avoid, some of the fencing because it just doesn't look pretty.
Right. We have a huge department of animal control or animal repellents. And one of the things about those products is you have to use them properly. They require some reapplication throughout the season for the maximum effectiveness. And in some cases, you want to alternate the products you use so the animals don't get used to it.
Huh. See, I learn something new every day. So, Rick, with that, just another minute or two with you here on the Megacast. If someone hasn't been to your store since the pandemic, what can they expect when they go in? I always look at English Gardens as like, you're like the fancy garden store to me.
Well, I think you're asking about maybe our safety measures.
Mm-hmm.
So, back in April of last year, we worked very hard at how we were going to reopen safely for our team members and for our customers. And we put in a whole protocol of cleaning. We sterilize shopping cart handles as they come back to the store. We have screening at all of our service counters, plexiglass screening. Our staff wears a mask, and we ask our customers to wear a mask as well. In some of our locations, we actually have installed air purification in our HVAC systems. You've probably heard of the iWaves and things like that. I think I'm missing something. We did so many things to try to keep everyone safe, and we've been very fortunate that we haven't had any issues in the stores.
Well, Rick, it's been great having you with us. Anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, I thank you for having us give a chance to talk a little bit. It's that time of year. It's the time of year to plant, and we'll be here for you. We've got great people and great products in our stores, and we can't wait to see you.
Start early. Get your hands dirty and dig in the dirt, right?
You got it.
Rick Vespa with us here on the Megacast. He's the president for English Gardens. Thank you again for your time. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. And before we wrap up the show, we'll be joined by the Friendship Circle. That's next here on the Megacast.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe holding things down for us back there at Civic Center TV. We want to say thank you to him. Just about 20 minutes left here in the show. And joining us now, we're going to bring in Basi Shimtov. She is the co-founder for Friendship Circle. It's been a while since we talked to you. How are you doing?
Thank God, great. How are you?
We are all surviving and looking forward to the springtime.
Well, same. Happy to be here.
So what's the latest with the Friendship Circle? I feel like you guys have so many programs going on. How do you keep up with things?
Thank God it's just been amazing. Our staff have literally not stopped. COVID and not COVID. It's just, what do we have to do? And let's figure another unique way to do it.
It has been a year for creativity.
Yep, that's for sure.
So can we start off with the Soul Cafe? Is it going to be reopening soon?
Well, we just opened last week, and it's been an amazing beginning, amazing restart, full house. In fact, with the difficulty of getting staff, it's been hard, but we have lines out the door to come into the restaurant. So it's been just a joy and a really great energy.
What is so nice about that, for people who aren't familiar with the Soul Cafe, is you guys have a unique background, but it really is about trying to support local. So fill us in on the cafe. What makes it different?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love to really focus on the fact of, imagine walking into a place where, yes, you want great, fresh, healthy, awesome food. And the backdrop is just beautiful. It's a great, modern, open, clean look. Most importantly, what you get from Soul Cafe is walking into a space where you just feel that unconditional love. You feel that happy place. So you come in here and you have young adults with special needs that just see good. They're not there critically judging you, how you look and how you're thinking and what your opinion is. If you're a good person, they feel that energy and they're just there with you. So they're there helping in the background, being the barista, serving, clearing, preparing in the back of the kitchen. We have an all-day breakfast menu, a lunch menu, of course. So we're open from 9 to 3 with just delicious fresh food, brick fire oven, pizza oven, which people are loving, the fresh salads, Impossible Burger, avocado toast, one of a kind. So the food is just great, and the energy and the space of just being surrounded with that has been very special.
How do you come up with the menu?
The entire team has worked on it for a few months while we were closed, and did a lot of tastings, and we brought in our community to do tastings. So we really have added quite a few of new dishes and perfected some of the old ones. So it's really just springy, summery, and delicious.
Basi Shimtov with us here on the Megacast. She's the co-founder for the Friendship Circle, and we're talking about Soul Cafe. How much support have you had from the local community throughout the pandemic?
So that's interesting, because we're actually trying even harder now to focus on the local community, just within even our 3-mile radius, to let people know that we're there. So we're on Drake and Walnut, and it's not like we're on Orchard Lake or in Birmingham, so it's really letting people know about us. And once they come, we've had lots of new people that we've never seen before. So it's really exciting. And once people come in, they're hooked, but they just have to find out about us and know that we're there.
Because it can be, you don't expect to see a restaurant there. I know there's the CVS or Walgreens that's right there on the corner. So you guys are kind of around the corner to the back. It could be easy to miss.
Totally.
But it really is. It's the hidden gem within the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. When people come, you know what? It's interesting. How often could you say that you feel an energy? You could feel it.
So you had mentioned briefly about staffing. A struggle?
It's crazy. A real struggle. And it's really sad. It's like people want to come and we have postings everywhere. So if anybody's looking to work at a really cool place, this is the place.
So with that, I know that you guys have so many other programs going on outside of the Soul Cafe. Do you want to talk about some of them?
Yeah, so we have an awesome camp coming out around the corner starting in July. We have about 7 weeks, a mix of day camp and overnight camp. We have a special called the Reuben Camp, which is going to be held at North Star Reach in Pinckney, Michigan. And we're doing actually a 2-week day camp out there that we're going to bus all the children there, and a 2-week overnight camp. And this was actually born out of COVID. Last year, we were desperate to do something in the safest way possible, since families that have kids with special needs, you can imagine, you need a place to bring your kid finally after being months isolated and cooped up in your home. So we started the overnight camp at North Star Reach. It was such an overwhelming success of the program itself that the children were like just living camp overnight while their parents finally had a real break, that we kept it for this year. And the Reubens sponsored it for us and made it happen. And the children are counting the days to come. But we have openings and we are ready. We really upped our game and we are ready to have more children join camp.
So with that, how many kids are you accepting? How many spaces are left?
We are accepting 50 children per week, and we are already 2/3 filled.
Wow. It's going to go quick as more and more people become aware of it. And with that, I know the CDC just recently came out with the new guidelines going around, about camps, because last year at this time, we were still pretty much in the beginning stages of this COVID, and a lot of parents were uncertain about should they send their kids to camps or day camps. Do you want to talk a little bit about the safety measures that you're taking to make parents feel better?
Yeah, so thank God we had camp last year as well, and we're really keeping to the same measures, but thank God all of our staff have been vaccinated, and the adults that are coming to our camp have been vaccinated, so that really helps. In the children's division, we have in pods of 6 children per pod, and we are having programs in all different parts of our Friendship Circle campus. And when we go to North Star Reach, it's an awesome large campsite. So we're able to really separate it all out. And of course, being masked and keeping all the safety precautions, which we've been very successful last year.
Do you get a little worried when we've seen so many cases here in the state of Michigan really impact the kids because they can't get vaccinated, and we're seeing more kids hospitalized in the hospital? It's one of those days. But with that, when you're trying to plan these programs, do you get nervous when you see these headlines about how is it going to be when people actually go to the camp?
Good question. I have to say that thank God we have a year behind us that we know how we handled it. And we know that it's been really successful. Putting these different guidelines in place and our staff being diligent with following through with all of it. We literally did not have one spread, thank God. So we feel pretty confident and we're following through with the same precautions. And honestly, in our Friendship Circle community, we've, thank God, not heard any kind of spread recently. So we're feeling pretty good about it. And we're just going to continue following everything that we're being guided what to do.
So with that, Bossy, with the Friendship Circle, can you tell us what has been the silver lining for you and your team through this pandemic?
I really don't like it. So I can't really say major silver lining. But I can't begin to tell you how I've never felt so good about our staff as I do now. And that must mean that they are not only incredible, but wow, the feeling of team effort that each and every one of our staff truly feel like they feel like this place is theirs and their responsibility, their personal responsibility to be there for our children. So when you have 20, 30, 40 staff members all on the same goal, that's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, it really is a community, and it brings you together.
Yeah, it really does. It's very special.
So we've seen so many organizations right now. We've all had to turn to Zoom and the internet. Anything that you guys started out of the pandemic, or programs or a different way of doing things, do you think is going to stick around?
Yeah, so our North Star Reach camp would never have happened without COVID. And that's going to stay. We have never had this level of communication with our staff because we were all via Zoom. Now, thank God we're back in person. But because of that, our staff we have way better communication, and we are going to be continuing that. And just the whole process of growth and continuing to do more and more has really come out of these days. And God willing, that those good things we plan on definitely continuing.
Yeah, you think about the time that we used to spend driving to work or commuting to this meeting or that meeting. Now it seems like you can get more done in the day. It's not the same as in person, but you can kind of be more productive in different ways.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the things that we also hope throughout the pandemic is it's really opened up the conversation about the mental health crisis that's been going on in our country. But there was a stigma and a shame that was attached to it. We really didn't talk about it. It seems like because of this crisis, people are more willing to discuss it, especially our teenagers.
Mm-hmm. It's more okay, basically. It's more expected. We have a You Matter program within Friendship Circle, specifically that is focused specifically in our teen community. And throughout the entire pandemic, we've been having meetups, whether it was on Zoom and many in person, especially outdoors during the better weather time. And that has really grown tremendously, the support that we were able to do and be there for our teens and for the community, and then for our older community and our Friendship House community of people suffering from addiction and isolation. So thank God we've really been able to build those communities and be there for our community.
So what are you hearing from some of the teenagers? Are they stressed right now?
Say again?
What have you been hearing from some of the teenagers? Are they extremely stressed right now?
It's interesting. I feel like it runs the gamut. I mean, some are feeling okay about things, and others are definitely stressed. And I agree that because we just went through the pandemic, we have the teens that are more willing and comfortable to come forward and be there for their friends and be kind of more aware if they hear or feel anything. We've still been doing our Safe Talk training that has definitely been really important for as many people to be trained in that as possible. To be able to notice the different clues if somebody's struggling. So it's given us an opportunity to strengthen those departments.
I know that for so many nonprofits, they rely on fundraising events to be able to help them with their bottom lines. That's been a difficult year. How are you guys doing in that arena?
So thank God we're doing okay with a lot of work and kind of reaching out to different avenues. So for example, right when the pandemic started is when we kicked off our endowment campaign, and that had to come to a screeching halt, which was really sad because we were in a major plan, just the upcoming 5-6 months. But about 2 months ago, we restarted it. And we have really been reaching out and giving people the opportunity that might want to sponsor a scholarship for an endowment for a child to come to our programs, to our camps. That, obviously we have to charge something, and that still can be difficult for many families. Or to sponsor a soul scholarship, which is for the adults with special needs that get to come and do art. And that has been tremendous for our participants. So our endowment campaign is essential to help us do what we do indefinitely, and to, when there's struggling times, that we don't have to come down and not have the opportunity to give the scholarships needed. So the endowment campaign is really important. As we're 26 years old of an organization, we cannot stop our programs. Our families need us too much, and we have to figure out a way how to really become strong and be able to continue the support that they're relying on it at this point.
So with that, how can people find out more if they want to donate, or even, $5 helps?
Yeah, every donation helps. Friendshipcircle.org. We have a donate button right there. Or if you're interested in learning more about the scholarship endowment campaign, you could go to friendshipcircle.org/foreverfriendship. That's our endowment campaign name.
So I know
friendshipcircle.org.
A lot of businesses, it was some of the major companies and corporations that would really help back some of these programs. Is that kind of dried up right now, or is it starting to pick back up, do you think?
I feel like it's starting to pick back up. It's starting to open up again.
So we're talking with Basi Shimtov. She is the co-founder for the Friendship Circle. Before we say goodbye, just another couple minutes, I feel like you guys always have something going on. Anything else you want to share before we let you go for the day?
So we purchased a bakery during this pandemic, Dakota Bread, right off of Orchard Lake. And that has been tremendous, where we really restarted our training program for our vocational department for adults with special needs. We are already full. We have 15 young adults who are being trained to work in the bakery. And like never before, the success in their growth of the training that we just started 3 months ago has been so solid. And we now have to sit down to figure out what other area in the bakery could we develop, so we could bring in some more young adults who are anxious to get a job and get out there and build on their skills. So that has been a really exciting piece that has just happened over the last 3 months.
And that is a really good location as well.
Yeah.
So what are the hours of operation there at Dakota Bread?
At Dakota, it is 8 to 5.
8 to 5, and then Soul Cafe is just lunchtime or breakfast?
It's breakfast and lunch, 9 to 3.
Okay. Two great organizations. And Dakota Bread, you guys started in the middle of a pandemic.
Crazy.
Crazy. Do you ever have, like, if we would have thought about it, you'd be like, what are we doing? Or you just jump in?
It doesn't even sound normal, but thank God that has been a miracle, honestly, and a dream.
Oh, well, we are so lucky to have your organization here in the community, helping support so many people. Basi Shimtov with us here. She is the co-founder for the Friendship Circle. I know that you guys usually do the big walk. Is that going to be happening this year?
August 29th. It's going to be a cool one this year. We're restructuring it. It's going to be a really awesome walk. Stay tuned.
Well, that's great. We always see the signs throughout the community, so that alerts people that it's going to be going on. Thank you again. We always appreciate your time, and we wish you the best of luck. Again, anyone support them, go to Dakota Bread. It's right there on Orchard Lake, but also Soul Cafe. Check them out. And anyone who needs a job, please, they're hiring. Help support them, support our community. A lot of high school kids right now. School is going to be ending. College students. How many people are you trying to hire?
Oh my gosh, it's a good question. It could be close to 10 is my guess.
Wow. So you're at this point, you're like, we'll just take anyone, right?
Yeah, I mean, anyone good.
Yes.
They've got to have our core values. That's vital. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been great. It's been great having you, and we hope that continued support and continued success with all the work that you're doing here. Again, a Friendship Circle. To find out more, just go to friendshipcircle.org. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
We have just about a minute left here in the show. Tyler, we want to remind people again, the CDC is going to be releasing new guidelines today regarding wearing a mask outdoors. So when we have that information, we'll be passing it along. We'll be watching that. Also, for all the information from today's show, just go to civiccentertv.com. Tyler, have you ever been to one of the football games? The soccer games?
I've not been to see Detroit FC downtown before, no.
Oh, you absolutely have to put it on your to-do list this summer if you can get a ticket. The games are in Hamtramck, and it is quite the event. You're a sports fanatic. I promise you will have a good time. And the great thing this year, they have women's soccer as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good time. They're expanding, they're growing, and this is a team that's going to be sticking around for a while. So I'll be excited to go see them when I get an opportunity, and we should, and anybody else that has an opportunity should definitely go see them. It sounds like it's a really fun experience.
It's a blast. You'll find out more information by going to our website, civiccentertv.com. We'll see you again tomorrow morning, 10 a.m.